Welcome back to A Closer Look. If you're just joining us, let me reintroduce our guests. We have Susan LaGuardia, who's the Initiatives Manager for the United Way of Greater Kingsport, and Becky Haas, who's the Crime Prevention Program Coordinator for the Johnson City Police Department. Thank you. And they have come together, and what we're talking about this morning is the, right here, Holy Friendship Summit.
That's right.
And it's groundbreaking, and it's going to be very informative because it addresses, unfortunately, a problem in our community that needs to be addressed, and that's the opioid crisis.
That's right.
Okay, so tell me, how can people get registered or sign up for this summit? Because you said it's open to everyone.
Yes, ma'am. We have a website, www.holyfriendshipsummit, all one word, .com. And on the website, if you're a church, you can download a copy of our brochure that you can use as a bulletin insert. You can register. You can register a group. You can register as an individual. There'll be directions how to get to the church. You can also download the whole guide here to give you all the schedule, the speakers. Yes, everything is right there on the website.
Okay, that's great. And so that is holyfriendshipsummit.com.
Yep.
holyfriendshipsummit.com. All right, very good. And like you said, it's a nominal registration fee, like $20, $25. $35. So that's for a couple of days of heavy-duty information. That's pretty good. And like Susan said, Chick-fil-A.
Breakfast and lunch included. Yep.
Can't beat Chick-fil-A. I love it. Okay, so let's go over a little bit more about some of the people that we can expect at the summit.
Okay. Well, as far as our speakers, I think Susan's going to address some of that.
Well, one of the speakers that we're very excited is coming is Andy Crouch, and he will be on the second day of the summit because of the schedule being so tight, but many people might remember him from the work that he's done with Christianity Today. He was an editor there, and he's a published author of many books and articles, but he's been featured in, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Time, other national magazines for the work that he's done. And he was editor-in-chief from 98 to 03 of Regeneration Quarterly, which is a magazine for an emerging generation of creative Christians. And so he brings a perspective also from being 10 years on the Harvard campus as director of the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And so he's connected with that generation of young people, and I think we have a lot to learn from him. So, and comes from a musical family, and is, I think, going to inspire us in many ways, that particular speaker.
So he's speaking from the point of view of what the as a Christian community we can do to help with the crisis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
And then we have Dr. Warren Kinghorn, Dr. Phil Kennison, Dr. Ray Barfield. They're all involved with Duke University. And some of the content would be about pain as far as a theological issue, and lament as far as sometimes there aren't really words that you can offer to a family who's had a child in long-time addiction. And so sometime, as our name suggests, Holy Friendship, we're thinking about the Good Samaritan principle, where some of those that were religious leaders passed on by the one who was beaten up by the side, but then the most unlikely individual, the Samaritan, stopped to help. And so some of the content that some of the speakers will address is related to ethics, and as far as things that the church has to offer in friendship and forgiveness and healing. And I know from a crime reduction standpoint, so many people are incarcerated because of drugs, drug-related crimes, whether it's taking drugs, selling drugs, making drugs, or theft to pay for drugs. And when they come out of jail, even though our cities are 65,000 people, it's still small. And they go back right into the same playgrounds and playmates and the same environment. And so this can offer a new network of friends and family to help network with that job, to find some housing, to have some accountability. And so that's one of the things that I think the strength that the church has to offer. In Tennessee, there are 12,000 churches, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse has a program called Faith-Based Recovery. Monty Burks, the leader of that program, is going to be in town for the 2 days and talking about how your church can be trained as an addiction-friendly congregation. So I think thinking about that, 12,000, what if you had 12,000 Rotaries or groups with United Way and they were just not involved in this? So it just makes sense.
And what I'm taking from this is the importance it'll be just to have this support group, because what I know about addiction is the relapse rate is so high.
Yes.
You really need a strong support system, if not a family. You need something. Because without it, the chances of you going back into drugs is so high that it's scary.
And again, you know, the church of all places where grace, you know, the scriptures are full of God's grace to us, and addiction is not a moral failure. The more I understand about trauma and adverse childhood experiences, so many of those that are involved in drug addiction, it's really self-medicating because of the crises and things experienced in childhood.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, we can with empathy say, you know, I'm sorry that that's how you started in life, but let us help you finish differently. Maybe you chose addiction as your way to address the situation, but maybe that we can become a more resilient community by offering other tools and things like that.
Very good. It reminds me a little bit like AA has such a strong support group. And I guess if you're involved in drugs, a lot of people that are drug addicts will go to AA as well, but it'd be nice to know if they could go and talk to people that are in their same position with drugs, not necessarily alcohol, which is a drug, but with opioids. And it is such a scary thing that's taking over our country right now that we do, like you said, Susan, a lot of people just don't talk about it in churches very much. It's kind of a hush subject, so we need to have this conversation, talk about it more, not be afraid to reach out.
And Linda, so many of our churches are siloed. You know, they have their programs, and other churches don't know what an excellent program they may be offering. So part of this conference is to really catalog what is going on where in the region, because one church can't do it all. And so if you can share your programs, and people feel free to come and be part of another church's program, that is one of the goals of the conference.
And also there are area churches. Mark Hicks is one of our speakers, and he's the pastor at State Street United Methodist in Bristol. And they have a Celebrate Recovery. They have a recovery program, Grace Fellowship in Johnson City. So some churches are already very actively involved in providing support. So we want to learn from some of the lessons that they've already found.
Oh, that's great. All come together as a community to attack this. That is fantastic. HolyFriendshipSummit.com.
That's right.
I want to keep saying that so people know where to go, so they can sign up to come. Like you said, the church, it's going to be at Celebration, holds 1,000 people.
Right. It's in Blumpville at 429 Shipley Ferry Road, Blumpville, Tennessee. They have been most gracious hosts, and will be spread out on their campus for those 2 days.
And it's May 18th and 19th.
That's right.
Okay, and this is the first of its kind here in this area, and you're having some pretty impressive speakers come and talk. So that alone would be worth going and just learning, even if you know somebody that might have this addiction, for you to go and learn this information, and you can bring it back to them.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
they aren't necessarily going to be looking for this information.
Right, no.
So I think it would be a very worthwhile cause to be checked out.
And recovery can be overwhelming. You know, if someone is,
Good point.
you know, been manufacturing meth and then they are in recovery and 6 months later fail a drug test, you know, all is not lost. Sometimes progress may seem slow, may seem strange, but it's a journey, it's a walk, and I just feel like if churches see that housing or employment, some of the pieces that are, and to somebody that's trapped in addiction, mentally it's overwhelming. You know, my mom taught me growing up, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. But sometimes you need somebody to kind of hold your hand a little bit as you know, many of the people with struggling with addiction have lost a license due to, you know, driving while impaired. Those fines have to be met, and so how do you maintain a job when you don't have transportation? And so I just think looking at the overall picture, I think it's going to be eye-opening for a lot, but we're super excited that churches are going to actually have the chance at the summit to sign up, whether it's with Safe Families, which is an emergent care. It's not foster care per se, because the children stay united with the families, but say a mom in recovery wants to attend beauty college at night. Well, what is she going to do with their children in a safe way? Sometimes I know from the police department, children are left unattended at a young age, so Safe Families can step up. Well, that partners with churches who are host homes where you have a couple of kids over for a few hours in the evening. Or then we have the Tennessee Reentry Collaborative will be there talking about all the things that are involved when someone comes out of jail, how to, you know, keep them and successfully reunite them to the community. So the churches are going to really hear from these, not only the national people, but the local service providers on how to jump in. And then we're going to follow that again for a year and publish a book about it. And we're just excited to see, you know, that maybe other communities struggling with the same challenge can be helped.
Well, this is amazing, and I can't wait to hear how it works out. Maybe this will start the conversation going, and there'll probably be more summits after this. We've only touched on this, and I hope that I can have you guys on afterwards to see how it went.
Sure, great.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Linda.
And we'll see you next week with another edition of A Closer Look.